Thanks everyone for coming. Today is the Apache Superset Meetup. We're focused on 1.3, which was released, I think, over a month ago now. At this point, I was on vacation, so it's all a haze a little bit. Um, but we kind of wanted to showcase some of the key things in 1.3, talk a little bit about the future, and field questions as usual. So let's get the show started. So first things first, some introductions. So I'm Srini. I'm in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the United States. I'm a committer to Superset and a developer advocate at Preset, which is where actually all three of us work. Julian, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hello, this is Junlin. I'm based in United States, San Mateo, California, San Mateo. I'm actually in the office of Preset. I am the product manager and PMC of Superset, and I've been heavily embedded in the community. And also, if you ever find an issue on GitHub or ask a question in Slack, probably have met me already. Really happy to be here to present the roadmap and what we are shipping for 1.3. Yeah, we'd love to hear your feedback of the product.
Great.
Passing
And we
it
have
to
Ville.
Villa.
All right. Yeah. So my name is Ville. I've been working on the Superset code base for quite some time, so over 3 years, and I've been with Preset for a while as well. And I've lately mainly focused on dashboard and explore view and visualizations. So working around that area mostly. And I try to be as active as possible in the community as well. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out directly to me as well.
Excellent. Great. Thanks for the intros. So first things first, I always like to start with a little overview of Superset to talk about kind of the three key pillars as I see it. So for people that are new, Superset's a modern open source BI platform started by Max when he was at Airbnb, and has since been open sourced and gone through the Apache incubator and graduated. And it's a modern open source BI platform that aims to basically query data from any SQL speaking data engine. So this could be databases, it could be query engines, if it speaks SQL, or you can put a SQL interface. So even on top of APIs, we want to be able to query. We want Superset to be able to query it, and a large diversity of charts. There's over 60 chart types now. You can add your own charts. So this is really kind of showing the power of open source. Because we can really just integrate with everything and support really any chart that's out there. So in 1.3, here's kind of the general tour of the most exciting things and the biggest feature categories. So we have a few new charts, which I'll showcase here. We have new data sources. So as I mentioned earlier, we always want to kind of encourage new data sources and databases, provide more opportunities for people to use Superset in their data stack. There's a new database connection modal UI. So when you're adding a new database connection, it's much friendlier, and it's you get more feedback, and it just looks a lot better. New Explore Viz gallery when you're making a new chart. Dashboard native filters, cross filtering, which is one of the most commonly requested features. I think we'll be showing off some of that, as well as drag and drop when building charts in Explore. So first things first, new data sources. I'm not super familiar with either of these and was not involved in contributing these, but Ascend.io, which is built, I believe, on Apache Impala, which is a data platform. Someone added a SQL Alchemy driver and support for Ascend, which is really cool, as well as IBM Netezza, which is another, it's basically an IBM data warehousing style product. And there's some community folks that have added this. So this is really cool. And I think, again, speaks to the power of open source. These are not platforms that I've ever used or a lot of the core committers have used, but people felt compelled in the community to contribute and extend Superset to support these. So I think that's super exciting. New database connection modal. So this is the new, this is what I kind of mentioned earlier. This is the kind of much more pleasant experience for adding a new database connection. So if you're not familiar, Superset kind of requires a SQL database or data engine for querying. So even if you wanted to query a Google Sheet or something, you still kind of need some type of driver that has a SQL Alchemy component as well as a Python DB 2.0 driver. So this basically vastly improves the experience of adding a new database. In the past, it was more of a list of fields, and you had to kind of paste in a SQL Alchemy string. And it was kind of a much poorer experience if you ran into issues or you copied and pasted the wrong thing. You're kind of on your own to figure out what mistake you may have made. With the new modal, the new wizard, it's much friendlier. First of all, actually get feedback on which drivers you have installed and which ones are available. So if you do not have, if Superset does not know how to query a certain type of database and you don't have that driver installed in your same Python context that Superset is running in, it won't even show up on the list. So this is really helpful feedback for people trying to add new databases. Is it even supported, or do you need to upgrade your instance to support it? And then on the right-hand side, you'll see that instead of typing in a SQL Alchemy string, there's a wizard, there's a bunch of form fields that are more human-friendly, and the string will be generated for you behind the scenes. Which is pretty cool to see, and a lot more accessible. As a database geek, I'm always excited by the new charts that are added. There's a few big ones. So first thing is the funnel chart. This was a super commonly requested chart type. I've used to be a product manager, and I used to make funnel charts all the time. So this is also something I wanted to make and take advantage of. So super common in sales, marketing, product operations, where you really want to understand drop off between stages. So this could be a sales pipeline, it could be a marketing funnel, etc. So this is a really popularly requested chart. Super exciting that this is now in Superset Core, and this is, I believe, based on eCharts. So it's kind of, it's a little bit more future proof than some of our older NVD3 charts. Next up, we have the tree chart. This one's interesting. It's really good for visualizing hierarchy. And the way I think about it is a tree chart is kind of a simpler version of a Sankey diagram when you don't really care as much about visualizing the proportions. So for those who aren't familiar with the Sankey diagram, instead of having just lines, you would have kind of thick bars that are scaled to the proportion of kind of link or a percentage or whatever you're trying to visualize between each of the nodes. And this obviously removes the power of a Sankey diagram, but kind of makes it easy to visualize things like a head count. So this is an example chart where you have the CEO node and the leadership team, and then it kind of trickles down from there. And so it's really kind of more of an abstract representation, great for showcasing something a little bit more static, things like an organizational hierarchy. And the cool thing, though, is that it is a little bit data informed. So you can, using the hover state in the nodes, you can show a metric. As far as I know, these don't scale. So if you put 500 instead of 5 here, it's not really going to look different, minus the numerical display, but still kind of a way to add some extra number, metric visualization, essentially, to a tree chart. Next, the redesigned tree map. This was one I was really excited about. The old tree map was great, but this one makes it much easier to handle nesting, and it looks much more visually appealing. So overall, just a cleaner design. You kind of don't have some of the thicker borders that were there in the first version of the tree map. And when you're doing the kind of combinatorial explosion of group by, when you have kind of like m by n unique group pairs. So if you're trying to group by multiple columns in Superset, it's kind of generating the queries behind the scenes, and it's identifying pairs of groups. And so when you have the nesting that results when you have pairs of groups like that, the first version of the tree map struggled a little bit more to handle this type of nesting. You would see kind of overflow issues, but with the new tree map, which is based on eCharts, you can actually see that as you have a lot of nesting or just kind of extreme outliers here, it doesn't try to show the text or force anything to be shown. So it just makes for much more consistent and clean charts when you're making tree maps. The last cool thing on the visualization side, this really goes to show the work that's been done and the progress that's been made on eCharts. there used to be a single eCharts type. I believe it was called time series chart, and you had to go to customize and pick between visualization types. So it's an interesting UI and kind of user flow where you kind of pick this generic chart container, and then you customized the type of chart you wanted. Now this has been broken up and exploded back into the component charts. So you got a line chart, which is, one of the most common ones, area charts, a V2 improved version of a bar chart based on eCharts, scatter plot, smooth line, and step line as well. So these will all be in the Viz gallery now when you select the charts instead of having a single chart container, essentially. So that's it for charts. I'm now going to hand it to Villa to talk about pivot table V2 and conditional formatting.
All right. So let me just share my screen here. So I'm going to be showcasing some new features that are that have been introduced in 1.3, and I'm going to start off with the pivot table V2 chart. I'm not sure, this might have been as kind of a beta version available in 1.2, but it kind of reached maturity during the development of 1.3. So you can select pivot table V2 from the Viz gallery, and this is actually the new Viz gallery. So any of you who've been using Superset before 1.3 might remember this slightly uglier user interface. So this is kind of really easy to find your charts, and there's kind of fuzzy searching that you can do to kind of find whatever charts you need. So I picked the pivot table V2 chart, and this feature is also behind a feature flag here. So we have this drag and drop feature. So instead of having to click on the metric or the column or select controls, I can just kind of directly drag stuff into the controls. So I'll put genders over rows, and then I'll put states across columns, and then I'll make it's kind of a sum metric over the number of over births. And this just kind of draws up the pivot table, and essentially this has the same features as the old pivot table, but this is native JavaScript. So this is much more performant and kind of adjusts to your viewport much better than the old one. So then I can, I'm just going to add something more. So I'm going to add a distinct count for the number of names. And when I run that, I can now choose if I want to be applying the metrics over the columns or the rows. So this kind of easily shifts between those two states. And then this probably looks better as a transpose. So I can do that as well. And then a new feature here that we've introduced is conditional formatting. So instead of just having these white cells, I can now choose one of the metrics and then choosing what kind of a conditional formatting I want to do. So the default is just kind of applying kind of a scaled up gradient from minimum value to maximum value. But then you can also apply kind of conditional operators. So just applying the conditional formatting to values that are above something or below something or between something. But I'll just go with the regular one. So now I'm going to be applying kind of green gradient to the sum of number of births, and that instantly applies here. And then if I want to be applying another conditional formatting on the count of distinct names, I can then choose a different color for that one. Oops. So I have to choose the correct metric, and then I apply that, and then it just directly applies here. And what you can also do is you can combine multiple different conditional formats so on the same metric. So you could, for instance, apply kind of green colors for values that go above 0, and then red colors going below 0. So kind of mixing and matching that way. And then native filters. So this is For those of you who've been using Superset before, there's a visualization type called filter box, which makes it easy to, or which makes it possible to drop in kind of filter elements into the dashboard among with the other charts. And what native filters does is it introduces this filter tab on the left side of the dashboard. And here you can then fairly easily add new filters, and those will then show up on the filter tab. So instead of having those filters scattered around the dashboard, you can just kind of centralize them on one place. So and when I hover on one of these filters, it shows to which charts this specific filter is going to be applying. So here in this filter config modal, I can choose the scoping for the filters, kind of like with the filter box as well. And this has feature parity with the filter box, but then in addition, there's also a numerical range. So just to kind of demonstrate how that works. So I've chosen the population as being the column for the numeric range. And what it does is it fetches the minimum and the maximum value. So now if I can easily kind of choose a range. So if I want to see countries with more than 500 million inhabitants, I just slide that over and then just applies the filter directly. And then on the filter indicator, that you can then see that we're applying a filter for population greater than 487 million here. So, and then one more feature here that I don't have in this example, but if you have multiple tabs, then if you have a filter that's only scoped to a certain tab or to charts that are under a certain tab, then those are always going to be hidden in your filter tab. So you'll only see whichever native filters are actually kind of relevant for the charts that you're seeing right now. And then finally, so this is kind of an extension of native filters, but this is kind of bringing native filters into the charts themselves. So the same way as we can emit filters from the native filters, we can also now start emitting them from the charts. So I've enabled the emit cross filters tab on or control on all of these charts, and this requires having the cross filter feature flag set. So now that I have that, I can then click on any of the slices here, and what it's going to do is it's going to be emitting a cross filter over to the other charts, and those are going to be filtered exactly like a native filter would do. This is really easy to use. So kind of jumping between charts is very simple, and resetting the filters as well. So this is something that we're going to be expanding more on, and we're going to be talking more about these features slightly later. But all right, so I think that's it for the new features, and I'll pass it over to Junlin.
Thank you so much, Villa. So along with all this functionality improvement, one of the biggest highlight I want to mention is the Viz Picker today. So this project was kicked off with a good amount of user research and design exploration went in before the actual development. So going forward, we really hope that all the new feature development are not only powerful, but also they're UI, UX friendly and user friendly. So going forward, we anytime that we improve functionality like UI, UX centric, we would love to engage a lot of user from community to gather enough data information and also conduct enough user research before we kick off the project. So this is also a community collaboration. The latest design that you are seeing in 1.3 is actually contributed by an individual contributor from Europe. So with this project, we have very good experiment in terms of user research and community collaboration. So let's move on to next slide. Yeah, so beyond 1.3, let's talk about the roadmap, what is coming and what to expect for long term. And we also want to leave room for you to provide feedback at the end, and also have everybody engage and drive the Superset roadmap with us. So going forward, we have 3 themes. One is developer experience and community collaboration. Second is feature development as usual. And then third is performance and others. So the first one, developer experience and community collaboration, has not been our focus until recently. So we will be spending a lot more time on helping you guys enabling people like new users, beginners from community in the next phase. So we understand that in order to unleash the potential and build a sustainable open source community, how important it is to make it easy for everyone to contribute despite your skill sets, your skill level. So from the engineering standpoint, things that we plan on doing includes to improve this process include component migration and uniform, and also moving Superset UI repo into the main repo. We call it mono repo project. And also we want to invest a little more in dynamic this plugin system. Right now we have a very basic, not end user friendly interface, and with so there are also the documentation itself needs some room to improve. So we want to invest in that area to make it easier for anyone that wants to build customized chart and contribute, either keep it in your production or contribute back to Superset easier. And also we want to improve the regression and visual testing to make sure the product is stable at all times. And also we will work on deprecating some of the new components and charts. And we will estimate spending 30 and 40% of engineering efforts and product effort in this area. And besides engineering aspect, we will work on developing through our design guideline and QA release, Superset release QA testing plan, so that everyone can easily grab the information they need when they open the PR, whether it's UI, UX related or help with Superset release process. And then 50 to 60% of our effort will go into feature development. We cut it down a little bit from like prior to 1.0, probably 70 to 80% of our effort went straight into feature development. And we see a big jump of the quality of the product since then, but we also realize that we need to start looking at other areas and invest in time in other areas. So for feature development, we'll be focusing on continually improve the chart quality. We'll be adding some more business and project management charts and customized charts using the core of eCharts. And then for Explore, we will be adding generic X-axis control. Actually, the work is already halfway done, and you will be seeing in production by 1.4. And then also we are gonna redesign and refactor the metrics and filter controls in Explore, meaning we are planning to move the predictive analytics and advanced analytics into metrics, and also move the time section into the ad hoc filtering in Explore. And then for dashboard, we will be adding multi-select cross-filtering and also drill down, drill course functionality as an advanced dashboard interaction. And then 10% effort we're going to improving performance and also deployment experience. Let's go to the next slide. So yes, this is what have been like highly requested, generic X-axis. Historically, we only take in temporal column as x-axis for all the time series chart. The only exception is the bar chart, and also we realized that having two bar charts, one word for categorical and one for time series, is not the ideal UX we want to provide to the user. So we have been doing a lot of POC and experiment on having a generic x-axis integrated into all the new e-charts. And previously, the series limits were only applied on time series charts. Now it can be easily added to any column type. And this feature will be available by 1.4 behind the feature flags. It will not be bulletproof by the time you release. So please help us out to provide your edge cases and help us out testing it.
So should I kick off the video here? Yeah, so I would have wanted to actually do a live demo for this, but I wasn't able to kind of get all the development environment linked up properly. But I have a video here. So this essentially just shows how it works. So starting out, it shows that there's a new control called Xaxis, and when I dropped in the temporal column, it rendered a regular time series chart. But then if I dropped in another X-axis, in this case the states, then it rendered a kind of a regular non-temporal bar chart. So let me just kind of rerun that again. So this is now showcasing how it works with the categorical x-axis, but it's also already working with numerical axes. So you can kind of think of this as making it possible to make line charts with a numeric x-axis, and then also doing scatter plots where you have kind of numerical and numerical axes. And also something that's on the roadmap. I'm not sure this is going to be included by 1.4, but having kind of raw form metrics that aren't aggregated. So that's, I think, something that a lot of people have been asking for, and it's kind of it should be developable fairly quickly, but we're going to be kind of prioritizing the x-axis work first.
Okay, next is advanced analytics. So this is also part of effort towards deprecating MED3 and fully migrating our charting library to eChart. So we added advanced analytics functionality to all the time-based eCharts recently. So all these efforts, along with the generic x-axis, is to help users to slowly migrate your chart adoption from MED3 to eChart. So please try it out. Let us know what is missing and what you want to see in all these new eCharts. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah, for more charts. So we figure all the essential charts are pretty much in place in Superset. What have been missing is the business and project management charts. So Waterfall is one of it, is in active development, and also Gantt chart is in the roadmap. Yeah, let us know what is missing and what you want to see in the new eCharts. By the end of this year, our goal is to fully deprecate MED3. So these charts, the old charts, will not be actively maintained anymore. Probably you won't see them in the code. So the sooner you provide your feedback to us, the sooner we can get to that goal. And the last theme I mentioned is performance. We're collaborating with our friends at Airbnb, and they have a project actively monitoring how dashboard performance is with their 2,000 active users. So because of all the development we have is going on in the code base, sometimes the performance may get worse because of some complex projects going on. And we want to make sure all the Superset users have the best user experience when it comes to speed and the performance. So we will be, we have been putting a lot more efforts, and we'll be putting a lot more efforts into optimizing the performance. Some long-term projects thoughts that I mentioned earlier. Couples of them are redesigning the major controls. One is metrics, another one is the hot filter. We'll be adding the predictive analytics, advanced analytics into metric components, and also queue the time sections that is very unique to Superset in the history, but it's not really like BI standard. Go along with the BI standard. So we want to move the time section filter back into ad hoc filter. So these two projects, it would be heavy on design, and I don't know the exact timeline yet. And if you want to see any new functionality in these two components, let us know. Yeah, and other projects would be that we want to invest in includes dynamic controls, which means, like, for example, in the mixed time series chart, we have like 40-50 controls, like the laundry list, and it is a pain to fill it out to create the chart. So we want to make it more dynamic and more dynamic, and controls only shows progressively when the selection is relevant. And then another area we want to invest in is dashboard advanced interaction, including drill down and drill course. Next one. Yeah, so we'd love to hear your thoughts on what you want to see in the product and how you want to participate in the process. So the best way to get a hold of us is select a GitHub issues. You can always tag me in the issue. My GitHub handle is Junlin CC, and then the rest of the team. I would route those issues to the rest of the team that have the domain expertise. And also you can Slack me directly in the Slack channels in one of these, improving Superset and using Superset, or even beginner channel. Okay, any questions?
Let's do Q&A. I will MC the questions. So Minak asks, is there any way we can format the column header position? So this is in the, I believe he asked this in the pivot table V2, being able to, I guess, specify the order of columns. Correct me if I'm wrong, Minak.
Yeah, I can get started on answering that right away. So that's actually something that we're going to be adding into the dynamic controls project. So the idea is that when you actually trigger a query and you get data back, that's going to populate a control where you can then customize both the order of the series and then change formats, colors, and so forth. So that's definitely on the roadmap.
Awesome. Bill asks, for time series line charts, can you use your own forecast data and display confidence bands without utilizing predictive analytics enable forecast section? I think this was touched on a little bit, but maybe it's worth reiterating here. Basically bringing in data from a different database system or an ML system.
Yeah, so I guess you could probably go about doing this by just having kind of a series of its own for the upper band, and then a series of its own for the lower limit, or for the lower confidence band. The time series forecasting functionality was kind of done as an MVP or kind of a POC. So we wanted to kind of show what Superset can do. And it's something that we're definitely kind of planning on revisiting, and something that I've wanted to work on for a long time is making this kind of generic and pluggable. So you could plug in your own ML models or APIs to which you could essentially send the data and then get kind of forecasts back. But that's something that we're not planning on working right now, but it's definitely something that we'd love to collaborate with if someone from the community wants to work on this more actively.
Nice. Anonymous attendee, probably not their birth name. Can you take a regular table and choose columns to pivot on to switch to a pivot view, say in a dashboard? I think it's kind of like dynamically choosing columns for pivoting.
I actually, the chart kind of makes it possible to do. And what I mentioned about migrating from pivot V1 to V2, this is all kind of happening dynamically in the dashboard or kind of in the front end. So if we had more customizability available in the dashboard, this could definitely be done. And this is actually something that we've been talking about quite a bit. So moving some of the explore functionality into the dashboard so that you could kind of customize the charts on the fly within the dashboard view. But I don't think it's something that we're prioritizing for the immediate roadmap. Junlin could probably elaborate more.
Yeah, so many of these feature requests, I'm not super familiar with. I know it's possible and Superset is capable to do it. So by one of the theme is really enabling the community to collaborate and make those features happen with us. So we are happy to invest our time to handhold yourself to get those features, to move this feature forward if that something that benefits your organization. So it's not in our near-term roadmap, but we will help you to make that happen.
Awesome. James asks, how do you turn on and expose the native filters pane? There's a feature flag. It's just enabling the flag, right? I can link the documentation. Let me find it. In the meantime, let's go on to the next question. Stefan asks, for the sunburst chart, can we have it so that the items you click on filters other charts? So kind of cross-filtering with sunburst as the input. The eChart example does this, but not the one in Superset. So it's probably an NVD3 versus eCharts thing, right?
Yeah, and I think the short answer of it is we're not planning on introducing cross-filtering functionality into the legacy charts. So we're only going to be adding them to the new chart one, the chart types. The sunburst chart is actually one that we've been discussing migrating over to eCharts, and then when and if we do, then we're definitely going to add cross-filtering to that as well.
Awesome. Minek asks, do you have constrained filters? Maybe it's worth talking about dashboard native filters and the types of constraints you can impose.
Yeah, so there's, I think, a few ways you can constrain filters. So one is scoping to specific charts or tabs, and that works kind of similar to how it does with the filter box. But then there's also the way of constraining the values that are actually populated into the filter. So say, for instance, you want to limit your filter query to only pull in, for instance, data from the last week, and you have tens of years of data in your table. You can actually add the same ad hoc filters to the native filters as you can to a chart in the Explorer view. So I think those are probably the two main ways of constraining native filters.
Here's a clarifying question, actually. What I meant is constraining the filter by another filter's value. So cross-filtering for filters.
Yeah, so cascading. Yeah, so cascading is, and I didn't demo cascading, but cascading is supported.
I can share the documentation with you.
Yeah, if you want to dig that up, you can post it in the Zoom chat, maybe. Minek says, okay, it looks like they're satisfied. And there's a few questions. We still have time, so if people have more questions, please add them in Q&A. There's some questions in the chat. Someone asked, Rebecca Cooper asked, is there any sort of rough timeline for the mono repo migration? It's a good question.
So we're working on the technical spike. Probably we'll kick off the project in mid Q4. So there's still some discussion what's best approach to do it, how to do it in the community. There's an open SIP, I believe it's SIP 58. Not sure, but if you have any thoughts, please comment. We probably close that one and write a new one in the next 2 weeks. And hopefully we can get the project done by the end of Q4. And this is something that we also look for people that wants to contribute. We believe that there will very much benefit the entire community who wants to build new charts, either in their own environments or contribute back to Superset. So I personally try to open PR in Superset UI as a non-technical person, and I feel your pain, and this is something that we definitely want to prioritize.
Yeah, if someone in the community has good experience around Lerna, then please reach out.
Awesome. I think we got one last question. Nitish asks, can we configure default values for URL parameters without these dashboards open without any data when first loaded?
Yeah, actually, I think this is already supported in 1.3. So it's actually, when you're changing the state of the native filters, the URL is actually changing at the same time. So you can just copy that URL and send it over to someone else. And when you open up that link, it's going to pre-populate the native filters.
Awesome. Last question, and then we will break. Radhakrishna asks, can people, I'm trying to see what they typed. Can people customize the color selection for each bar or lines in charts for the future? Maybe talk about color customization and the future of that.
Yeah, I think this actually goes into dynamic controls. So I was talking about bringing in all the series into a control in the Explore view once you get data back from the backend. And the idea here is that in kind of a similar fashion as you can, I think, in Google Sheets or Excel, you can just right click on one of the bars and then you can customize, the values or formatting or colors. And that's, I think, what we're going to be aiming for. So I think that the first version is going to be being able to reorder the bars, but then the next one will be to actually start customizing more granularly.
Great. Last question. Euclides asks, responsive web design support. So just the future of that, if it's on our radar.
Mobile, iPad.
Responsive. Any, it could be a 100-inch TV or a phone, I guess, right? Just, maybe talk about responsive web design and where that falls in the priorities.
We've been talking about that internally. There's no clear timeline for Superset roadmap yet. But like with drag and drop, so with new drag and drop, I know it's not compatible with iPad and mobile phone anymore. So I understand the user would be no longer able to create charts using like on their tablet using drag and drop. So that's one of the pain point we want to solve in terms of responsive. There's no clear timeline about this yet.
Got it. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks everyone. We are at time. Thanks everyone for coming. I hope this was helpful and informative. If you have follow-up questions, feel free to ask them in Slack. And if you have feedback on this meetup, there's a community-feedback channel in the Slack as well. So please point your feedback in that direction. Thanks again, and happy Wednesday. And I hope everyone has a good rest of the week. And thanks Villa and Junlin as well for speaking about 1.3 and the future. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.